to be joined with the wonders of technology by former Peterborough United defender slash midfielder slash winger Tommy Rowe. I want to talk to you about your time at Peterborough because rather like some of the other players have obviously got promotions on the CVs, you actually joined at the start of the Championship season that we got relegated in. What can you remember about signing from Stockport? What was the negotiations like?
I think probably when I gave for Stockport, if I can remember correctly, it was after the game, managed to score the winner, and I remember sitting next to Jim Gannon, and he just said, you know, the club seemed interested. It was in my head at that point that I need to have a good season, kind of thing, which was fine because it helped both sides, you know, go in different directions, and it was a real shame the way it ended with Stockport with the administration. That was the worst way to leave because it was like a self-destruct button for the club. It was players, teammates, friends. There was no real goodbye at the end of it. So that was a shame. But obviously arriving in the summer, the club had a lot of momentum going into the Championship, did back-to-back promotions, and they were the buzz of the Football League at the time. And I remember it was the main attraction, obviously the manager was the club as well. And I just knew the club was just going in that direction, that seemed one way everyone wanted to be a part of. I was lucky to be obviously a part of that early on. And then obviously you get into the nitty-gritty part of the season, and what happened was relegation the first season. But like, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, from recollection of that season, I think you scored in the second game at Wickham in a cup game. I think we'd lost at Derby the opening day. That must have been a nice feeling to sort of get off the mark early doors, because any new player wants to make their mark.
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle early on in terms of my development. I knew that I'd be jumping quite a lot in terms of not only sort of the competition level, but the stamina side of it, the intensity of the game. That just came from how intense the training session was under Darren as well in the first sort of week or two. So I knew that I had a lot to learn. I remember the Derby game being very tough. They were a good side at the time. And it was all about learning. The first 6 months, also me and my wife, we had our first child. So we were moving to a different part of the country, which was always a challenge for a 19 and 20-year-old, on top of, learning about a new part of the country. So they were the challenges. But yeah, the Wickham game was when I managed to score my first goal. And, it wasn't until later on in the year, after we went through all the turbulence of the season so far. Unfortunately, the manager ended up leaving his job, and we had, 3 or 4 managers in quick succession. And I think that was the best thing for me going into the Championship. And although it wasn't great in terms of we got relegated, I learned so much about myself and the club, and sort of gaining that sort of reputation.
Yeah, it was difficult, obviously, because you say went through so many different managers. I guess because you were so young, you were just trying to take any nuggets from all of them, really, in terms of your development.
Yeah, and I think that was exactly what I was as a person. I can't speak for everyone, but I think, the managers that came in were obviously Gary Johnson and Jim Gannon and Mark, and players and managers like that who I knew that I had to learn something from all of them. I was a utility player / sort of midfield, if you like, when I came in anyway. But I knew that would be so important now, that I'm showing that as a quality of mine. And every single manager who came in, they sort of taught me something new, including the assistant managers that came in along that time too.
Yeah. You mentioned Jim Gannon. I always remember Jim Gannon because everyone described him as sort of ahead of his time a little bit. You knew him probably better than anybody in that squad. He tried to do quite a few things in terms of formation, in terms of what he wanted you to do. Were there players, do you think, in the squad that just struggled to adapt to what was being asked of them?
Possibly, yeah. I think what we tried to do is get back to sort of winning ways with, I think it was 8 or 9 games left. I can't remember how many games he actually had. But I remember us winning something like 50% of them. So I think the success rate was there in terms of being at the bottom of the Championship, but winning games. And any new manager brings his own philosophy to a side that's either struggling or need to adapt to. The team's going to find it hard, and we only had 9 games anyway. So I still remember it being a positive in terms of finishing off the season well. The fans pay the money to come to them get the season in the Championship. They want the best value for money, and we had to finish it off strong because we owed them from a poor display throughout it, really. But for me, the manager that sort of gave me my league appearance and helped me along the way in my career early on came to the club. So I knew that it was going to be beneficial for me again, as long as I listened. And it was encouraging because another new assistant manager, I think Nicky stayed on with him, which, I got on great with Nicky at the time as well. So another string to the bow, really.
Did you find in those early months of the season and throughout that campaign that you were establishing yourself as a midfielder? Because often when you speak to players about, it's great to have versatility, secretly they want to play in a certain position. Did you have that in your mind that you wanted to try and hold down a particular spot, or were you just someone that, as long as you're in that 11, you didn't really care where you played?
No, I think I came in as a midfielder, to be honest. There were so many variations to the manager's formations. I knew that I could fit in somewhere. We obviously had the likes of Boyd in on the left, which is not ideal when you come to a club. It can be quite intimidating, but for me, I saw it as a challenge because he was that good. I think if you can rise to that level, you'll be somewhere close behind, and that's going to be good enough. And he was, along with a lot of the players at the time when I was coming in, him, obviously Joe Lewis and Dean Keats, the lads like that were great. I remember the team, sort of team bonding at the time was incredible. Although we were going through a struggle, there was definitely a great culture in place that the manager had over the last 2 to 3 years anyway. And I was just sort of absorbing it all and, learning from everybody at the time. And they were big characters, so, a lesser person would have got lost in it. And at times it was difficult, but again, I was 19, 20. I had to adapt now, and this was going to be a great year to adapt because there were so many challenges facing us.
I think when that season ended, obviously everyone expected a manager to be put in place. Gary Johnson obviously came in, and he'd had good track record at the club you're at now, obviously Bristol City, and I think people were describing it as a coup to sort of get him. Did you feel during that summer going in? I think George obviously signed a new deal during that summer as well, that the next year was going to be, we're going to bounce back straight away.
Yeah, we did. I think we always had that belief. I think the club that it was at the time, for me, was every single player went into the season with full belief that, we were going to try and do something in the Championship, or we were going to get promoted from League One. And it was, players coming in. I remember Craig Alcock saying the same thing. When he went to League One, he's used to surviving in League One, where actually he's at a club now where he demand promotion because, that's the quality of players the club has at his disposal. So, yeah, I think we went into the season, obviously, full of confidence. You've seen, Boydie signed that long contract and players around coming in. I think McCann was around that time, and we obviously had, within that sort of 12 to 18 months, we had the likes of Lee Tomlin coming through. Like Mark Little came in shortly after myself, and the team was developing nicely, and it was just about adding to the pieces. But again, you have to go through a struggle in the season at some point, and we had our dip, and we jumped back on it later on in the years, as you'll know the success story. So,
yeah, obviously Gary left off the back of a number of sort of very inconsistent results and heavy defeats in and around a lot of goals scored. There was a lot of rumours about Darren coming back at that time. As a player that, as someone that had been brought to the club by Darren, I'd imagine you were quite excited about that.
Sorry, was that about Darren?
Yeah, about Darren coming back. Yeah, quite excited about him coming back in through the door.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it was quite weird for me because I had current managers and past managers that were coming and going. But I always knew that my attitude had to be right for all of them. If I was going to get anywhere from this spell, I had to, apply myself 100%. And obviously, hearing the rumours of when he was coming back and he eventually came back, we all knew that, how good a manager Darren has been, and nobody wanted to see him leave anyway. I was very disappointed to see him leave in the first place because I signed initially for him. So it was like, okay, now I've really got to knuckle down and turn it on to sort of to get to that level to prove myself.
Yeah, that formation obviously went to a diamond with, I think Boydie played obviously at the tip, and then you had Mikel Smith at the top often with Tomlin, and then it was McCann deep. Yeah, and you and sort of Frecky in midfield as well. I mean, you had to do a lot of the legwork. No disrespect to Grant, but he was more of a sort of, I don't want to call him Perlo, but he was the sort of deep line playmaker. If you look at the people nowadays, you had a lot of work to do in that midfield. I guess your fitness level needed to be pretty good to cope with that.
Yeah, but it seemed that way at the time. It didn't seem as much. Now looking back, yeah, the diamond can offer a lot of strengths. And one of them is if you've got players that can play them positions properly, and they can give you, their outlets that you need. You have the creativity side, but you have that workmanship side of it as well. You can get a lot of success, and we had some incredible goal-scoring seasons from it, where we were so sort of dynamic, and we created so many chances, not only from the centre of the pitch and up front, but from wide areas, from full-back areas, and it was a great time to be at the club, because the sort of starting line-up, at times you're sort of pinching yourself that you're in it. But just to go back onto sort of Grant McCann came in at a great time, and he brought that leadership side. We obviously lost Keatsy shortly before, and it was like one of them role positions where you trust somebody who is a captain, is a leader, and has been at this level before. And technically he was frightening. So me and Freck didn't mind doing most of the legwork, and it worked out quite well for that season, and particularly the season after, where we were in the Championship and competing at the level that we trust ourselves at.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because everyone looks at that successful team that culminated in the win over Huddersfield and talks about Mikel Smith, or talks about Tomlin, or talks about McCann, or talks about you, whatever it may be. But I suppose in a diamond formation, the two fullbacks have to play such a key role. Obviously, Litz turned into a marauding right back. You didn't really know what he was doing, mind, but he got into the positions whereby he was going to cause a problem. Obviously, that first leg game against MK Dons, where he won that penalty late on with a terrible challenge on him. I mean, it was definitely a red card. I guess that was typical Litz, wasn't it? You didn't really know what he was going to do, but he got you up the pitch quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Litz coming in, and I always used to play. I can't remember where he was on loan, but I played against him and remember him being fast. And then when he came in, I remember being quicker. And he always had that sort of extra yard of pace. But at the time, I think he had a great combination with Mendes Lang down that right side as well. Them two together worked incredibly well, because just keep defenders nightmares. But Litz could always recover well with his pace as well. So defensively he was solid, and going forward he was even better. So it was a great outlet, and it helps us along that way. Start from League One, and then even better in the Championship, I would say.
I've talked to a number of the players that obviously played in those two semi-finals, and they've all talked about how it was meant to be, regardless of the first leg, the second leg. You truly believed you were going to get through to the final at Old Trafford. As someone from that neck of the woods, was it extra special that it was Old Trafford? Were you one of the minority that were quite happy it wasn't at Wembley?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was over the moon. I went to Wembley with Stockport, which was an unbelievable experience. My first time at finals, we won. It was fantastic. My whole family was there. But what's more special to me as a Manchester United fan, and was having all my family, at Old Trafford, and winning. More importantly, winning there. That was a great occasion. So yeah, I'd probably say that trumps the Wembley win. I know it's everyone's dream to play at Wembley, and it certainly was mine. But if you can imagine being from Manchester to play at Old Trafford, and just to see our fans, there was a lot of talk about Huddersfield fans on the day, how many turned up, and I can't remember one. I just remember looking to my right, and the Peterborough fans were amazing on that day, and not just from the goals, but all the way through, because for 60 odd minutes we had to contain that noise and contain that. Obviously, they thought they'd had this final, in the bag. So it was great to finally get the 3 goals in the last 20 minutes or so, and go on to celebrate.
The goal that you scored, the first goal, obviously, I suppose when you know about Grant McCann's delivery, as someone who's pretty good in the air anyway, was it just a case of, right, I know pretty much where he's going to stick, just get somewhere and get something on it?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I scored the goal, but the credit has to go to not only Grant for his technique, but the trust that the players had in the management, the assistants, everybody all the way through who penciled down what we're going to do for a set piece when it matters. And, you know, we have to show bravery at the moments, not to do what we want to do, just to do what they want us to do. And, you know, my movement was to get across the front man. And if it'd gone somewhere else, that may not have gone in and could have been a different story. So, yeah, there's a lot of trust that goes into this. And that's why we were such a good team, because it wasn't just the starting 11. You know, you've seen the lads coming off the bench, pulling in great performances towards the end when we were all tiring. And all throughout the season, coaching staff were brilliant. And we had a great union where we all listened, and training was very intense. But for moments like that, it was important that we paid attention, because when you've got Grant McCann on a free kick, you have to just do the job, really.
Yeah, I always remember the obviously your celebration, and the camera cutting to you sort of as if you were completely out of breath and were desperately trying to sit down. What was it? Just the adrenaline just overcome you? Were you knackered? Were you injured? Were you just relieved? What was the emotion?
Yeah, I looked at it not long ago actually, and it was a bit of both. The sort of the adrenaline was a lot. I remember that coming out at the second half, it was heavy legs, and it could have been from the atmosphere, but. I did take a knock, and I was struggling before the free kick, but I remember feeling it as I went over to the sideline, and I was exhausted as well. So it was a combination of both, but I think there was an element of injury in there somewhere. I think I came off 10 minutes later, so yeah, I think it was down to that.
I spoke to Chris Whelpdale a couple of days ago about McCann's free kick and how much of an important role he had to get out of the way. And he made it sound like it was choreographed, it was a key moment and everything. But essentially, it was just get out the way, let McCann do his stuff. But as you say, that meticulous planning probably was what was going through his head for the third.
No, but again, you know, I can relate to what he's saying, because we did it in training where Grant would say, I can't remember who it was at the time, but he always wanted somebody there so the keeper couldn't see the ball. He can put it either side then. You know, he's far enough out to put a cross in, but the keeper probably thinks in between, and he's just put it in top corner. So every little bit like that, the detail that season was perfect from the staff all the way down to the players, and that's what got us the promotion. And obviously the individuals were there as well on the day. Obviously Craig McCall-Smith had a great season, goal scoring. Lee Tomlin came into his own in that season, Ryan Bennett, and players that you can sort of single out for their individual performances. But I remember being part of a collective that I remember being in the tunnel, in the changing rooms before the game going out, and we all had sort of like a clip, our motivational clip that was there, and we could feel it that we were going out there to win and to do it for each other. And that was from as soon as we went out on the first whistle, I think it was, you know, in our heads that we were going to win, and that's what created it, really.
I always remember, because we obviously went up for the weekend in terms of the preparation for that game. I think you went to Old Trafford on the Friday, if memory serves me correct. I think Man United played Barcelona, didn't they, on the Saturday night?
Yeah.
That geezer from Coronation Street was in the hotel, from recollection, and Litz was wandering around in a Man United show. Tomo won a bet, didn't he, off the gaffer? But I think, I suppose for you as a Man United fan, just going in the dressing room, I think the shirts were up, if recollection serves me right.
The day before we went round. But yeah, we were in the hotel, and the manager, obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson, was with United in the Champions League final, which we lost. And it wasn't as much as it was. We were disappointed for the gaffer. You know, we could see his disappointment. He nearly got battered by the gaffer, nearly battered Tomo, because Tomo obviously had a bet with him that Marcel would win. And it was borderline being awkward at times, but it was all in good taste, I suppose.
I'm pretty sure the gaffer walked out.
Yeah, he walked out. He's okay, but we just remembered it being okay. You know, it's nothing really. It's not something that we need to worry about a night before our game. So, you know, we just kept our heads down and continued as always, and kept the preparation as normal as we could, really, because obviously it is intense. So we were having a laugh with, you know, like from Coronation Street and stuff, which was a little way to sort of take the sting out of the evening.
I remember the next season, I think at one point, if we'd have beaten Leeds, we'd have probably gone second in the Championship at the time. I think Tomo got sent off in that game. They scored quite late on. I guess at that point, you were probably riding the crystal wave and genuinely thought that this could be anything this season. I guess employment was high on your agenda at that point.
Is that the championship season?
Yeah, the championship season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we obviously had the flash games against like the Readings and away. Sorry, at home Reading when we had a great performance in that, and Ipswich at home. Some huge wins that just give you that extra bit of confidence that you were ready for the league that year. A lot of the players had been there for 2 years and more, and we had a point to prove. We had a point to prove to ourselves that we were good enough. I think that was the driving force. But we also owed the fans one. The chairman had backed the club, generously, and the manager had stuck around again and given us all. So there was a lot of togetherness going into that championship season, and I think that was what was. I remember Millwall away was a great performance as well. There was many performances in that season. See, apart from the end of the Crystal Palace one, that we really made ourselves, known in the championship, and that was a great feeling.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously Mikhail Smith left at the end of the previous season, and there was a number of players that probably came in that I'd imagine you probably haven't heard of. Paul Taylor, Dwight Gale. I mean, when those people were coming into the building, were you thinking, are these going to score the goals? Because they had unbelievable parts of the game.
Yeah, huge. Lone players as well coming in at the time. George Thorne came in, players like that, and that, we're young but we're ready. And I think you always know what players are going to do for you most of the time when you see what they're like in training, because our training sessions were quite intense. So you got a good gist of how the player would fare, but you never knew players like Paul Taylor how he would turn on in a game, and even Dwight Gale to a degree. But these players, I think they all came to the club to do the same thing, and that was to go on to better things. And look at Gale is going to have a great career, and the club has always produced top strikers. So people coming in, you've got to trust the recruitment, and the players have got to trust the recruitment. And we know if someone's come through the door, they're going to be good enough. So it was as simple as that for us.
We had some great results down the years in your time. Obviously, this week we've actually shown the Wolves game on Boxing Day where we won 3-0. I think you scored the first goal in that game. A lot of fans have talked about that being as complete an away display as you see. You must have really enjoyed going to Molyneux and turning it on in that respect.
I think that was, clubs didn't like to come to Peterborough. We knew that. It was intimidating when we come into, down the change rooms, and we'd have our music on and stuff like that. And we'd be at them, we'd press quite high, and the pitch was smaller, so we knew we'd have an advantage there. But we really wanted to set our stall off in away games, and some of the football we played in away was great. We switched the ball well, we moved our formations around a bit sometimes to get the rotation, because it was so demanding the amount of games you played. But it was a great learning curve again, because we were now beating teams that a year ago we would struggle against, and I could imagine as a fan it was great to be part of. It was great as a player, and I just remember enjoying pretty much every game that season was unbelievable. And as from a family point of view, your family are there watching you do it as well, so it was extra special, I suppose.
Yeah, obviously some great players you played with during your Posh career. We've mentioned quite a lot of them there. Who stands out for you as someone that, I suppose, A, on the pitch, and B, potentially off the pitch, who helped you in your development?
I can only go back from my first season, and I probably missed a few, like Russ Martin, who, as a captain at the time, he wasn't playing as much when I came in as he was prior. So, but I remember his professionalism. He was very, very fit for what he did. He'd always win the race in pre-season. He'd set the standards, and was players like him. But the likes of sort of Joe Lewis, George Boyd, and Dean Keats, that for me at the time, I was coming in, and it was kind of to impress these players. I just wanted to be similar to them. So that was the challenge for me, to show them not as a character, to show them that football was good enough. And it was a challenge that it was tough, but by the end of it, I hope I got there, close to it.
I look back on that time. I look back at all the players that I've obviously seen in 19 years of working for the football club. We've had a lot of characters. Jimmy Bullard's a character, stands out for me. But during that time, Joe Lewis, I mean, a weird individual, but he was someone that I guess a dressing room really needs.
Yeah, definitely. He's someone who I keep in contact now with. So speaking to players who have been on loan to Aberdeen this season, I know he's still like that. We really like Zach Finer there. And he comes back and says exactly the same as everything you say. So, yeah, he's probably not changed. He's probably, you know, he's got a kid now, so he's probably even less immature. So, but no, it's the way they do things. You can have a laugh with players all the time, but when it's down to training or a match, you've got to take things serious. And these players had that at the best of their ability. So I think that's what stood out for me, was the character when they went into training and the seriousness of it. Because at the end of the day, the manager and the coaching staff, they demanded it, so you couldn't get away with it.
You had a really good affection for the supporters. There seemed to be a real connection there. And it sort of developed over time to a point that when you were on the verge of leaving, they were singing "Please Don't Go." I mean, that must have been nice to know that the supporters respected what you brought to the party.
Yeah, definitely. It was that sort of last season when I was captain as well. We had a good run. We came close to doing the double. You know, we really wanted to do the double, and we were 2 or 3 games away from doing it. Unfortunately, we lost in the playoffs. But being captain at Wembley again for the cup was an amazing experience, because you know, I think my son was old enough to be mascot on the day. We won, which was obviously, again, I keep saying that, but it's so important to win these events, because they're easily forgotten if not. And at the time, Chesterfield were a very good side. I remember looking at the players and thinking, they're too good for League Two, these players. You know, often them players went and played in the Championship now, and you know, had some great careers. So that was a highlight, you know, going into that season and winning that cup, because I always remember the club were keen to gain a cup for the reputation, and as players we wanted to produce that. So to be captain for that was amazing. But that was the first season, probably where we did lose quite a lot of players over the 5 years in my career, 4 or 5 years I was there. And I remember becoming quite important in terms of having to be that leader now. The ones that I was learning from, they'd all gone on to better things, or seen their careers out in terms of leaving and retiring from football. So I knew I had to be that leader. And there was others around. Obviously, Brian Bennett was there for a year as well, and then he obviously left. But yeah, it was definitely a great end to my career, because the fans have been nothing but great with me in terms of on and off the pitch. Living in Peterborough for so many years, I used to bump into people. So it was always good. But I remember the first game back when I was at Doncaster, and we played Peterborough, and I think I started on the bench, and the fans were there and they were singing my name again. So it's amazing, really. But to have that commitment to somebody when they've gone to other things, and you know, they've always got a special place in my heart for the things that I've achieved at the club.
You mentioned about obviously being captain. I always saw you as a sort of captain material, because I think you had that sort of leadership quality that you kind of need to have the armband. When you were given that responsibility, were you surprised, happy, shocked? Can you remember the conversation?
Yeah, I do. I think it was start of the season, or probably the end of the season. I think contracts come into play at that part of the end of the season, so you sort of know where you are as a club. Definitely knew I was here no matter what for the season, and potentially going to sign for longer. So it was like, I see you as a captain, and hope you accept it. And it was a no-brainer for me to be captain for this manager, for this club. At a stage in my career where I felt I could definitely give the sort of on-field and off-field instructions to a better level. I was just, you know, so excited for the campaign, and I think I got injured at the start of it, actually. I'm not too sure if that was my shoulder.
I think it was.
I might have injured my clavicle, and I came back anyway, and from an injury, and I remember being even more important to hit the ground running when I did. So it was good to get back playing, but the players at the time, we had a lot of good young players coming through. We'd invested again heavily on youth and non-league players, and you could see there was some real gems about to develop, and that was so exciting, to be part of that and to see that development, because obviously, that had been me sort of 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, it was definitely a great honour to be captain of the club, and that season to finish with the trophy just topped it all off, really.
Yeah, of course, the semi-final, you scored the crucial penalty that got us to Wembley. I remember that night being it was a sort of surreal night, really, because I guess people look at the JPT, don't they, or Captain Paint or the Football League Trophy, and you don't really discuss it until you're at the final. I remember going into it thinking the chairman really, really wants this. I think he was a guest actually on Sky, and we scored obviously to get it to penalties. Did you feel that it was in the stars for you to get to the final, or were you actually quite nervous to get
it? I mean, for the penalties, it was different, because when we were going into them, we'd only practiced them. We never knew, we didn't have an order of taking or anything like that. So again, it comes down to that management, and we had that belief in us as a team, that this team can go and achieve something. From the start of the season, we wanted to get promoted and win the cup. That was in our vision. And again, we were close to doing that, because we got to the playoffs and we won the cup. So we had a lot of belief. We had some very good young players, and we had some older players now gaining that experience and taking it into a cup and a league season. So yeah, when we got to that level when it was the penalties, we knew that whoever would pick penalties would be in a position to pay the right price. And at the time, I thought the penalty, which was Swanee. He had the best at the club by far, and when he missed, I sort of, it's a bit weird. But obviously, I put my name down for the 5th penalty. I didn't think it was going to be the last, but luckily for me, I managed to score the winning goal, and great celebrations at the end with the fans, because we were close to them. So I remember just running over, Mark Little running over, and Ben McKenzie and everyone just sprinting over to that direction. So it was time, and then to the cup, and winning the cup was great.
Yeah, obviously the final, I think Josh McCoy, Sean Brisley obviously put it in control, then Chesterfield scored just after the break, and obviously Joe Neal then got sent off. Obviously got the 3rd goal. I mean, it was nervous without being nervous, I think.
It was, yeah, I agree. I think we, under the last 20 minutes, we were under a lot of pressure, but I remember thinking we were the most calmest at 10 men. Because we were all playing our positions. We were obviously sitting back a bit more. We had the goal advantage, but they had players that could hurt you. We knew that. The quality on the pitch was very high, but we were really relaxed because we trusted what we were doing. We trusted our shape that's been working all season for us. Our defensive qualities. We had to concentrate, and we weren't going to let it slip with a few minutes to go, and it was great. And that whistle went. We could all celebrate. Well, not for a long time, because we had 3 or 4 days later, I think it was MK Dons, I might be wrong, away. But we definitely had a game soon after. So the celebrations were kept to the coach, and then after that, we literally had to switch on for the game a few days away.
Last couple of questions. I remember your goal against Southampton, obviously live on TV, I think. Sort of bursting down their left channel and sort of fired it roof of the net. Do you remember your goals? Are you someone that could, if I said name all your goals, you'd be like, yeah, I can name all 23 or whatever?
I wouldn't say all of my goals. No. I remember being in certain games when goals would be more, when we need a goal more. They were the ones that meant the most. Obviously, when you're scoring a goal in a game where, 1, 2, 3-0 up, has less of significance, but when you need a goal, I remember one goal, Barnsley at home, and I think we were 2-1 down, ended up winning 3-2, and it was the winning goal, and they were a great side at the time, some good players, and they were the goals that I remembered. But, I think if you're a centre forward, you remember every goal, but if you're a midfielder, you remember the important ones, and it's important that I always had that knack for wanting to score and to wanting to get in the box. So I think that's what helped me at the club, because there was so much quality in boxes and through the middle, and I just need to be involved in it, really, and fair share, to be fair.
And final question, obviously you left because you're out of contract, and I guess when a player is, I don't want to say winding down the clock, but you obviously come into an end of a contract. Is it hard to continue to play at the same level when you've got fans saying sign a deal, do this, that and the other, when I guess at that point you kind of knew you were looking for another challenge?
I've had that challenge 2 or 3 times in my career now, and I remember to myself, it goes back to when I was 20, 21, and them times when it was tough that we were getting relegated. And I remember how difficult of a season, that was, particularly for my development. And I can only go from a strength now. I can only take this, and if my character is correct, which it was in that season, and it's correct through this season, then whatever I'll be happy with. And I've always used my sort of as a gauge of how I want to achieve something from a season. Okay, we win medals and trophies, but I trust myself as my character. If that's going right into the season, and I've paid my respects as a player, as always, that's what I'll judge as a success, really. And I definitely remember that last season. I gave my all. I didn't change a thing. When the cards are down like that, you usually go just trying to be even more professional. And I think that's what you can do as a player. That's all you can do. And I just remember it being, it was a sad end to the season, actually, because we lost that thingy. But all in all, looking back at it now, there was a lot of success.